were saying he thinks he's bigger than his britches for Notre Dame, and that because the decision to not start him on a regular basis and use him in some as-needed basis made him feel like that he's better than that, and he can go somewhere else and be a star. This is all about him wanting to be a star, don't you think?
Well, you saw with two previous quarterbacks. You saw with Everett Golson when he made the move to Florida State, and you saw Malik Zaire when he bolted for UCF after he lost out to Deshaun Kaiser. So it's not a new thing. It's just whether or not that move is going to be successful. I don't think it necessarily worked out for Golson or Zaire, and depending on where Michael Young ends up, it may not work out for Young either. But, again, I think right now the debt, there's a little bit extra debt now at wide receiver. Granted, Chris Fink likely won't be back for a fifth year next year, but I think you're pretty decent with where you are at this point. And like I said, there are new players coming in next year that supposedly will help bolster even further. So it's not a disaster scenario. I think it's just getting rid of a player that just doesn't fit what Notre Dame is about or necessarily what they're looking for as far as a player that will mesh with the rest of the team. I think right now they thought they were going to get that with Michael Young. Apparently they're now thinking they're not going to get it.
And again, just feeding into the rumor mill, but do we know exactly where he's going to end up? I heard some rumor mills that he was looking at Auburn or Ohio State.
Who knows at this point? Just depends on what ends up with the scenarios. I mean, that's two teams that potentially could need a wide receiver next season, but you never know at this point until it actually happens. So anything could happen at this point. I mean, rumors are rumors. Until I see something to believe it and some confirmation, I'm not going to say much as far as where he could end up. And honestly, it doesn't affect Notre Dame anymore, so I don't know if it really affects Notre Dame where he does end up.
Well, it doesn't get much better than Notre Dame football versus Michigan. Let's talk a little bit about the other side of the line. Michigan has figured out a way to come in here being 5-2. Jim Harbaugh, as much as we have said, Jim Harbaugh's on the hot seat. I think that seat's starting to cool down a little bit.
Well, the thing is, here's the problem with Michigan. I don't know if how many people really want that job. Because look at the last two coaches they had, Rich Rodriguez, Brady Hoke. If that's as good as they can get as far as getting a coach, I don't know if opening it up and looking for another coach is really going to help them a whole lot because the Michigan job has more demands to it, kind of like the Notre Dame job, but maybe even a step higher where expectations are on your tail. You cannot afford to lose even a single game. So I don't know if a bunch of coaches are out there really want to take on that burden after what went through with Rodriguez and Hoke. And I don't know if they could get better if Harbaugh did bolt for the NFL. So looking at the scenarios, I don't think they could do any better if Harbaugh goes out. I think they can only do worse at this point as far as finding a new coach.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Look, I mean, I tell you what, though, I have to admit, I have to keep going back to my experience of going up there a few weeks ago against the Virginia game. That was a lot of fun and a lot of history and tradition there with Notre Dame. But Notre Dame and Michigan has a history, has a love-hate relationship, if you will. Most people have their rivals, if you will. Maybe the Cubs have the Cardinals and the Red Sox have the Yankees and, the Eagles have the Cowboys. We have one team. But I tell you what, when it comes to Michigan, they have multiple teams, Ohio State and Notre Dame being the biggest. And talk with us a little bit about the rivalry. Why is this such a big game? Why is this such a deep-hearted, hard-nosed rivalry between Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Michigan Wolverines?
Well, you got two of the oldest programs in college football. That's part of it. And then, you have the Schembechlers, the Holtz. I mean, a lot of famous names with both of these programs as well. In fact, I believe we'll have a couple influencers. I think, for instance, on our game day show this afternoon at 3 p.m. on WSBT, we'll have the famous radio voice for Notre Dame for many years, Tony Roberts. We'll have former quarterback Rick Meyer and a few others mixed in as well. I haven't taken a look at the list as well as far as the guest list, but I know those two are on with me, Tim Grau, and Vince D'Addario. So we'll have those people on. But there's just a lot of big names. Obviously, Rocket Ismail with his 2 touchdown returns in '89 against Michigan comes to mind. But, yeah, there's a lot of history to this rivalry. I don't know if, again, it's the biggest rival, because I think I talked to Reggie Brooks a couple of weeks ago, and he said the biggest rival in his mind is still USC. But it's still an important game and a game that they want on the schedule. And certainly it's going to have a big influence right now on what Notre Dame ends up. I mean, Notre Dame still is on the ropes even if they win this game, but we know for sure if they lose this game, their chances of getting in the playoffs are gone.
We're talking with Matthew Embury with the flagship station up in South Bend of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish WSBT, also our official IndyCar contributor. Not a lot to talk about right now with IndyCar in the funny season as it is. But let's time to break it down by the numbers while we've got a few minutes. We'll start with the Michigan Wolverines, break it down by the numbers. What does Michigan have to do to beat the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? We're a national show, so we like to give love to both shows, both teams. So if you're a Michigan fan, what are you hoping that happens today? What has got to happen tonight in the Big House?
Well, even if the passing game is going to be limited, Shea Patterson's got to have his influence in this ball game. And I think Jim Harbaugh needs to be ready to pull the plug and possibly go with Dylan McCaffrey if things do not go well at the start of this ball game. He has not had the desire to do that, but I think if he had done that, I think against Penn State, the way they came back, I think they could have beaten Penn State. So I just have a feeling sooner or later in this game, we will see Dylan McCaffrey, and he did have some success against Notre Dame the last time they played. So if we go by that scenario, I think it would not. I think there could be a quick yank here if Patterson doesn't get off to a good start, and we could see Dylan McCaffrey again, because not only is Dylan McCaffrey a good arm, he is a run-pass threat, much like Ian Book is for Notre Dame.
Well, here's the thing, and then why Ian Book is so good at that is because he's good at reading the blitz. But if Michigan can control the run game and get in Book's face, in other words, blitz, this could be a nasty night for the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, a lot like the Georgia game, certainly. I mean, that's what Georgia was able to do in between the hedges. But, yeah, I think Notre Dame's got to get off to a quick start. I don't think they could play from behind against this Michigan team. And with the way their defense is, especially, I mean, the second half, the last time they played Michigan, Chase Winovich, et cetera, got into them and caused them a lot of trouble. So it wasn't that they could dominate against Michigan's defense the whole game last year, because they didn't. And so being able to get an early jump and get the early lead, I think is going to be paramount if Notre Dame's going to win this ball game tonight.
All right, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We'll kind of wrap things up here, because I know we only got you for a limited amount of time. But go ahead and break it down, the X's and O's for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. If you're in the war room with Coach Kelly today, what are you talking about? What are you doing?
Well, it's like I said, you got to get out to a fast start, get some points on the board, put Michigan under pressure, make them have to open up their game and maybe take advantage, maybe get some turnovers and try to take control from there, much like Penn State did last week at Beaver Stadium. And if they do that, which I believe they will, I have Notre Dame winning this ball game 17-14 tonight. It's going to be a close one, but I think Notre Dame does find a way to steal one at the Big House tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's going to be a huge win, but Ian Book has his work cut out for him. If you're Coach Kelly and you're watching tape with Ian Book knows what he's got coming at him. And like I said, Michigan could blitz, and Ian Book is not good at the blitz. If you're Ian Book, what are some of the things you're doing to calm your fears and to get ready for tonight?
Well, the big thing is, like I said earlier, you're hoping Jafar Armstrong and Tony Jones can get the run game going, because I think that takes the pressure off. So if Jafar Armstrong and Tony Jones Jr. are able to gain yardage on the ground, that makes Ian Book's job a whole lot easier tonight.
Well, totally excited to see about what's going on. We got a couple more minutes with you. Walk around the college football scene, top 25. What do you see, and what's on your radar today other than Notre Dame and Michigan?
Well, without Tua Tagovailoa, I think this is Alabama's toughest test against Arkansas. I still think they're going to win the game, but I think it's going to be a lot closer game than people think. And Clemson also has looked a little bit skittish here recently, but I still think they're going to continue on. So they're still the two teams to be at this point. And then 3 and 4, I think right now are still up for grabs. You have LSU making a late charge. You have Georgia making a late charge. A lot of people are staying up. Keep in mind, Auburn's still got to play all three of those big powerhouses, and that's something that other three teams in the SEC don't have to deal with. So I think if you have the toughest path to get there, Auburn certainly has it. I don't think they're going to get there. Georgia, the loss to South Carolina, I just think in the committee's mind it's going to be too much for them to overcome unless they pull off a big upset like in the SEC championship game against Alabama. And LSU's got a chance. They got the momentum, but Joe Burrow, can he get the job done in the big game? That's still a big question mark on my mind. So there are opportunities out there. And then, of course, you also have Oklahoma and Ohio State still out there with chances. And I think right now, as far as Ohio State, if they can get by Wisconsin, I like their chances of being one of those 4 teams in the college football playoffs because I just don't think the level of competition is there for teams such as a Michigan or a Penn State that could give them much of a challenge.
All right, well, let's walk. We got about 5 minutes here. Let's walk on, put on our Homer hats as we walk across the nation, if you will, and put on our Homer hat. Indiana at Nebraska. Indiana needs this win for a bowl eligibility win. I think Hoosiers win 37-28 over the Cornhuskers. What say you, sir?
Nebraska's in a mess right now. This is a perfect time to get a victory, but I just don't think it's going to happen for Indiana this week. I think the better chance for them is in the bucket battle against Purdue to get a win.
Well,
to get the bowl eligible.
Going back up into your neck of the woods, Central Michigan Chippewas against the Buffalo Bulls. A lot of people think that Central Michigan will pull this off, maybe a 30-21 type win.
Buffalo, I think, still one of the top teams in the back. I don't think it's going to happen for the Chips tonight. I believe Buffalo's going to win that ball game.
Miami, Ohio Redhawks against the Kent State Golden Flashes. This should be. I don't see any reason why that Kent State cannot win. Will win this game. I'm sorry. I think that Miami, Ohio Redhawks certainly wins this relatively easy.
I don't agree with you on that one. I think Kent State's got a lot better offense. I think it's underrated just what their offense can do. I mean, remember, they put up 62 against Bowling Green in Bowling Green. So I think Kent State wins this ball game.
Well, certainly it's the battle of 3 and 4 teams. I mean, again, I think the Redhawks will be less than very good and not come away with a win, but maybe they will. We'll see. We'll come away with a win, but maybe they won't. We'll see what happens. Holy Cross at Colgate. Holy Cross brushing their teeth, relatively easy, probably a 30-17 game.
Pretty much in that area, I'd say Colgate has not done much. The Raiders, not exactly the greatest of teams. I mean, they have a long history, but they have not been good recently as far as FCS power.
We got Washington State Cougars against the Oregon Ducks. The Ducks should handle this relatively easy.
Well, they keep calling Mike Leach the giant killer, so at upset I would not be surprised. But, Oregon badly needs this game, I'd say, to stay in the race for the Pac-12 championship and not for a college football playoff spot. Certainly a spot in the Rose Bowl right now is on their minds at this point.
Well, if you're a betting man, you go with Vegas. You are going to go with the Utes over the California Golden Bears, but we know about Vegas and their dumb luck, so I'm thinking the Golden Bears will beat the Utes. What say you, sir?
Thing with the Red Rocks, though, is every game that they've had to win, they've not been able to do it. I keep seeing where people think they're the best team in the Pac-12, but I just don't see it. I mean, every time they've had a big game, they just have not gotten the job done. And I would not be surprised if Cal took this game from the Utes later tonight.
Well, absolutely. That's kind of where I'm with you. That's why I said Vegas always has its down luck. One more game, though. Kansas Jayhawks and the Texas Tech Red Raiders. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen the Red Raiders be able to do anything on the football field. Certainly we know they can do a lot on the basketball court, but on the football field, I still want to go with the Jayhawks on this one. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, somewhere around 45-31.
They had a big performance against, Oklahoma. Oklahoma State, or it was, they gave them a run. But keep in mind, we're still talking about Kansas here, and as good as they are, they still have some really ugly losses on their resume this year. Of course, the Boston College game or the Boston College win was good, but they still have some other ugly performances. I just don't. I mean, this is a team almost lost to Indiana